Hi, this is Professor Correa, and today I'm going to teach you about how to use direct and indirect object pronouns separately and in one sentence. But let's begin with a review. What are object pronouns in a sentence and how to identify them in a sentence? Let's start by looking at the components of two basic sentence structures. The very first one, María habla español. The main components of this basic sentence are: the subject is Maria, the verb is habla, and the direct object is español, what is being spoken. So we have a sentence with a direct object pronoun. And example number 2, Pedro llama a su amiga. In this case, the main components are the subject, Pedro, the verb, llama, and the indirect object is a su amiga. That means to whom he speaks. In this case, it's an indirect object. But let's review one by one these pronouns. What is a direct object pronoun? Direct objects in general designate what or who receives directly the action of the verb. In other words, the answer to what or who plus the verb. Example, yo bebo chocolate. What do I drink? Chocolate. The direct object receives directly the action of the verb, and in this case is the verb to drink. Another example, with a person. Yo invito a mi amiga. Who do I invite? Mi amiga. We use the personal a in this sentence particularly when it's the person that we are talking about, or when the person is the object. My friend is the direct object. Direct object pronouns help us substitute those direct objects so we don't have to repeat. Example, we use me for me, te for you, lo for him or it, la for her, nos for us, os for vosotros, las for feminine plural, los for masculine plural, and ustedes. Example, if I want to use a direct object pronoun in the sentence yo bebo chocolate, I will substitute chocolate with the appropriate pronoun. And in this case, I chose lo because chocolate is masculine and singular. I place it before the verb, and I will say yo lo bebo, meaning I drink it. In the second example, yo invito a mi amiga, I invite my friend, I'll substitute my friend, in this case is female, singular. I will use la. Before the verb, I would say yo la invito. I invite her. What is an indirect object pronoun? Indirect objects designate who receives indirectly the action of the verb. In other words, the answer to whom or for whom. Example, ella sirve un café a su amiga. To whom she serves the coffee? A su amiga. The indirect object receives indirectly the action of the verb, in this case the action of serving. So the preposition a basically gives us a clue to which one is the indirect object in the sentence. For example, in this case would be a su amiga. Indirect object pronouns usually substitute the indirect objects, so we don't have to repeat them. In the case of me, I will say me, you, te. For him, her, or usted, I would say le. For nosotros, nos. For vosotros, os. And for them and ustedes, I would say les. Let's take a look at an example. Ella le sirve café a su amiga. She served her coffee. Her, in this case, obviously, we are talking about her friend. Le substitutes friend. We add a su amiga as emphasis because the indirect object pronoun le could also be used for him or you, usted. So it's important to clarify. Where are object pronouns usually placed in a sentence? When there is only one verb in the sentence, we place the object pronoun before the conjugated verb. Let's see this example. La mamá le da el helado. Le means to him in this case. We place it before the verb da. El niño lo come. The kid eats it. So lo replaces ice cream and we place it before the verb come. When we have more than one verb, we have two choices. Choice number one, we place the pronoun before the two verbs. Example, yo te estoy hablando. Yo lo voy a leer. I am talking to you. I am going to read it. In these two sentences, we have placed the pronoun before the two verbs. The second option will be attached to the second verb. Example, yo estoy hablándote. I'm talking to you. Yo estoy leyéndolo. I am reading it. In this case, I have attached to the second verb. Note, in this case, an accent becomes necessary to the second verb because you are adding an extra syllable. Double object pronouns. Order of pronouns. When both an indirect and direct object pronouns are used in a sentence, the indirect object pronoun precedes the direct object pronoun. Let's review the pronouns that we know so far. The indirect object pronouns that we know are me, te, le, nos, os, les. Notice the use of se in the third person. We are going to learn this a little bit further when I explain the indirect object pronouns. The direct object pronouns that we know are me, te, lo for masculine singular, la for feminine singular, nos, os, los for plural masculine, las for plural feminine. In one example, we have yo te doy un regalo. I give you a present. If I want to replace el regalo, which is the gift, I would replace it with a lo, masculine singular pronoun. But then I'm going to place it right after te, which is the to whom. Yo te lo doy. Te is to you, lo is the gift. So make sure the indirect object goes before the direct object. When to use se? So as I mentioned in the previous slide, when both the indirect and direct object pronouns begin with the letter L, the indirect object pronoun always changes to si. In this example, le compra un coche, she's buying a car from him. Se lo compra, if I were to replace le in front of a lo, will become se. To become se lo compra, she's buying it from him. In this other example, les mandamos un email, we send an email to them. If I were to replace un email next to les, will be se lo mandamos. We send it to them. So the se replaces le or les. How to use the pronoun se in a sentence? Since se can stand for le, either for to you, to her, to him, or les, plural, it's often necessary to clarify its meaning by adding a and the pronoun. Example, a usted, a él, a ella, a ustedes, a ellos, a ellas. In one example, le doy flores a ella. Se las doy a ella. I use a ella to clarify that it's her, the recipient of the flowers that I'm going to give. In the other example, la profesora les enseña a ellos la fórmula. Se las enseña a ellos. She teaches it, in this case the formula, a ellos. So I have substituted sé for less in this sentence, and I use a ellos for clarification. Where do we place double object pronouns? Again, when we have one verb, place the indirect and the direct object pronouns before the conjugated verb. In this example, el barista me lo sirve, we say, the barista serves it to me. In this case, it is lo, referring to the coffee. The barista serves the coffee to me. Me is for me, lo for coffee. Me comes first, lo comes afterwards. But these both pronouns come first before the verb. When we have two verbs, we have two options. We place both pronouns before the conjugated verbs, but separately. Example, él se la va a enviar. He is going to send it to her. It being the letter. Se is to her. So we place both pronouns before the two verbs. Option number 2, we attach both pronouns to the second verb, but in this case an accent may be needed. Él va a enviársela a ella. Notice that the se and the la become together attached to the second verb. A ella help us clarify that is her, the recipient. Let's summarize what we learned so far about direct and indirect object pronouns. Object pronouns are usually in Spanish used for clarification, emphasis, or to abbreviate a conversation. Direct object pronouns substitute the object or subject who receives the action of the verb. Example, el niño habla español. El niño lo habla. Lo referring to Spanish. The student speaks it. Indirect object pronouns, on the other hand, substitute the person to whom or for whom an action is done. Example, ella habla en español al niño. Ella le habla en español. Le es de niño. She speaks to him in Spanish. Both objects can be used at the same time, but make sure that the indirect object pronoun goes first and the direct object pronoun goes afterwards. El profesor me lo da. The teacher gives it, in this case it refers to exam, to me. Before an object pronoun that starts with the letter L, such as lo, la, los, or las, substitute it with the le for se. Example, do not say ella le lo sirve. Rather, ella se lo sirve. In case of two consecutive verbs, place the pronouns either before the first conjugated verb, el profesor nos lo va a dar, or attached to the second verb, but never between the two verbs. El profesor va a dárnoslo. Remember, an accent may be required if you decide to attach the subject-object pronouns afterwards. Thank you.